What's up guys, the Strong Boys 19 here. I'm still recovering from a hay fever, and if you hear some object blowing, to me it's the fan. But at least I'm still doing my best to be recovering as best as I can and to be cool despite the absolute garbage, sickening heat wave. Anyway, this is going to be a video on the social media challenge for music fans. I know that some of you guys may not be familiar with it at all, but there are some random questions that you would like to answer, and with what your music taste in music is, these several questions will give you a big thinking to choose your answers for these random questions during this social media music challenge. So let's start at number 1. By the way, these are probably going to be my permanent answers instead of just random guesses, but there are some that would be taking me some time to think if they will be permanent or not. Let's get started. The band that I hate. There are tons of bands that I do respect but not a fan of, but for hate, there's not a big list. You know, when it comes to other bands I've mentioned previously, like Kiss and Guns N' Roses, to use the word hate, I think there's no other band that I would really answer this question with than a band named Immure. I really dislike this band so much, and I cannot stand their repetition of really broken, boring and awful pieces of garbage music. And I think Eternal Enemies is one of the worst albums ever made. I've never been a fan of the genre, but I have friends that do, and much love to them. But for me, I can't stand it, and Immure are just the worst band in metal. The band that I think is overrated, I've already answered this one previously, but I'll just have to repeat them again. Guns N' Roses. When you overkill the purpose of listening to rock music with hearing the same songs billions of times over, it really does drive people insane. And some people may think otherwise, and to think these are still great songs. Yes, they may be great, but Guns N' Roses music is the ultimate aggravation to really listen to them properly ever again. I cannot stand this band. And you know, other things that I've already said about Guns N' Roses, but they are just the band that sticks to that answer for me. It can be very obvious for many, but I don't care. The band I think is underrated. I think that even though that Fear Factory is one of the most underrated metal bands, I do love them very much, and they are one of my favourites. But I think one of them has to absolutely be Sparks. Ron and Russell Mael, the two brothers, are brilliant musicians. They've made a lot of great records with their own charm, their passion, and it's also insane to me that they have not been getting a lot of the praise that they should have decades previously, because from the late 2010s to this decade so far, they've been getting a lot of the hype. And a lot of their music has just been so fun, catchy, and addictive stuff. Love Sparks. A band that I love a lot of bands that are into, you know, rock or metal or progressive. I'll just have to pick one instead of the obvious. A band that I love, Pink Floyd. Not only that they are my favourite progressive rock band, but they are one of the bands that really opened my eyes to get into the difference and a huge craft on emotion a concept and a new future to grow my music taste. I could have picked any other band, but Pink Floyd has been pretty much a big important one for me that I do love. A band that I can listen to over and over again. Again, just like the previous question, I would have said loads, but to answer this one, I would have to say Electric Light Orchestra. I love this band. Jeff Lynne is one of the greatest songwriters of all time. Progressive pop, symphonic rock, and pop music that is one of the best ever. As much as I do love Michael Jackson to the Beatles, I think Electric Light Orchestra is one of these top bands that loads of people have to love. The band that made me fall in love with music, I think it has to go to my favourite band, Slipknot. They have been the huge gateway bands to really fall in love with music. Even though that Green Day was my first favourite band when I was younger, but when Slipknot kicked in, they have opened many more doors to discover a whole new life, and the adrenaline to know what a different persona and personality a band has to offer. And that goes with other bands too, obviously. The band that's changed my life, I would have said Slipknot again, because they became my favourite band for a long, long time, and they still are. One of the bands that has changed my life, I think it has to be the Beatles. I know that they are the biggest band in history, with love, stardom, and the impact that they have made for millions of us. But the Beatles have absolutely made a lot of sense that art can be as open and as big as possible than just sticking into a genre that I do like and to only listen to one genre. The Beatles have opened so many of the optimistic and exciting experiences to know a gigantic sense why music is such a very important part of who I am. A band that surprised me, I think, besides Strapping Young Lad and Yet to Learn that I became a fan of Devin Townsend for a long while now, a band that surprised me is Marillion. I did not expect Marillion to be this fantastic band, and Yet Alone, Brave became one of my favourite albums of all time, period, and one of my most favourite concept albums. But with Marillion, they should have been as recognised and as praised as one of the other mastermind acts in progressive rock. The guilty pleasure, I would have said Limp Bizkit, but the thing is, it's a really, really strange argument that you may think guilty pleasures are a thing or not, because you can just listen to what you listen to. I would have said Limp Bizkit for this answer, but you know, most of the time I just don't care what I would like to listen to and, you know, hear another soul of music. When I was really young, before I really got into music, I actually loved a lot of Robbie Williams. I know that's a shock for many, but I was a big fan in my really young days, before music took over my whole soul of myself. I guess Robbie would be the guilty pleasure, but another one, I think this one would be the definitive pick. I would have to say that it's Frank Sinatra. I love Frank Sinatra with his difference in tone and a bigger emotional attachment that still touches a lot of people, just like with loads of solo artists that I do appreciate. But Frank Sinatra is one that I didn't expect that I would be in love with for a long time to this point. And he is one of the greatest of all time as well. A band that I should have seen live, but I haven't. This is easy. Mastodon. I would love to see Mastodon. They are my favourite progressive metal band. I would want still to have a chance to see them live. And the last one, favourite band to see live, I would have said Slipknot, because the third time they were like the greatest band to see live. That was the band at their best, but I think Rammstein has to be the number one. I loved the experience of seeing Peter Gabriel to Alter Bridge, Devin Townsend, but Rammstein has always been the number one band that has been my favourite to see live. There you go, guys. That is my random video to answer the social media music challenge. If you want to participate, then do feel free to join. Let me know what your answers are in the comments down below. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll keep you guys posted for more videos in the near future.